in the time tonight, take time to join us tonight. I think we've got a fantastic speaker. I'm going to look forward to hearing more about CERTS myself. Just a couple quick announcements. I wanted to mention that MRES is still planning their solar boat regatta on May 18th. And so you're all welcome to come. And if any of you have contacts, even up in Northeast Minnesota, that you got people that would be interested in participating, we'd love to have more people involved. So this will be our 32nd year of doing that. So it's been a really great, and what's happening is a lot of the schools that have robotics are now, as that gets finished up in the spring, then the teams are, working on the boat regatta. So should be a good year for the regatta. And then the other thing I wanted to mention just briefly is that MRES is again involved in the eco experience this year at the end of August at the state fair. And so we're looking for, people to participate with us, as volunteers, or we've got a number of things going on as far as, and a couple of new things that we're going to be showing that Chris has been working on. So should be an exciting year for the eco experience also. So, well, I want to get us started here so we have enough time. So I wanted to introduce Nik Allen. She's the coordinator for CERTS up in the northeast part of their region. CERTS to me is just one of the most amazing organizations we have in Minnesota. I mean, they cover the whole state, which I think is totally awesome in their various regions and stuff. And then they have a huge amount of work going on also in the metro. And Nik is like I say, responsible for the Northeast area. And she's going to share some of the stuff that they're up to now. So Nik, take it away, please.
Hi, everybody. And thanks so much for the introduction, Doug. Like you said, excuse me, I'm Nik Allen. I'm the Northeast Regional Coordinator with Clean Energy Resource Teams. Right now, I'm standing in Cloquet, Minnesota at the U of M Extension office, but I live on the Iron Range, just a bit north of here. And I'm going to just take a second to share my screen so you can all see my slides. Do you see a large yellow thing that says getting to know certs? Beautiful.
Yep.
All right.
Looking good.
Technology doesn't always work for us. So we'll jump right in here. I'm going to give you like an overview of certs and some of our recent programs. And I'll tell you a little bit about my farm too at the end if we have time. And I'm going to leave some time at the end. I won't take our full hour so that there's plenty of time for conversation and questions. But and we'll jump right in. So Clean Energy Resource Teams, we all call it CERTS, but it stands for Clean Energy Resource Teams, are a statewide partnership with a shared mission to connect individuals and their communities to resources they need to implement community-based clean energy projects. So we empower communities and their members to adopt energy conservation, efficiency, renewables, practices for homes, businesses, and local institutions. We like to call ourselves a bridge. We're here to make the connections. And how we do that is, was there somebody going to jump in? Sorry, I thought I heard something. But how do we do that? So we connect people to resources, ideas, inspiration, stories. We like to tell the stories of successful projects, not only the ones that we're involved in, but other energy projects that are happening in the States. We like to provide information. We help with tools and funding. That's a big piece of the puzzle, right? And it's always community-based. So we're doing things at the community level and as much as possible led by communities. We do a lot of things across the state. So we work with cities from helping them with solar procurement to facilitating cohorts and networks for peer learning on things like accessing federal funding and electric vehicles and advancing energy practices as part of Green Steps. We'll talk a little more about that when we get to programs. And these are our values and principles. These express our values in a really tangible way instead of just me rambling about them. We meet people where they are, no matter who they are, where they're from, or where they are in their energy journey, whether it's at the auditing phase where they've already built something. We convert learning into doing. We are not only a research entity. Research is part of some of the work that we're doing, but we are pragmatic, practical, cooperative, and unbiased with our approach to get people up to speed and connected with others and ready to act on their energy goals. And we strive toward inclusive access. I think strive is the important word there because we're still just humans, right? So there are mistakes along the way, but we're really working to create opportunities for meaningful engagement and participation for everyone in clean energy. And lest we forget to say it explicitly, we are non-policy, non-advocacy, which is to say we don't lobby, we don't weigh in on policy proposals. We do report to the legislature as they direct $500,000 to us per year through the CARD ratepayer fund. So of course we do report to them, but we don't inform policy. Slow down a little bit, take a breath. We are making an impact. So over $1.6 million in seed grants have been awarded to 467 energy projects since 2006. We have impacted well over 900,000 people through grants, events, and programs since 2009. And we've helped Minnesotans save nearly 582 billion BTUs of energy. That comes to an estimated cost of around $7.3 million in energy savings. So this is the hardest part of this conversation every time, is to explain the CERTS partnership. There are people who work at CERTS for many years and still cannot explain this or understand it easily. So just bear with me here. We are made up of, we're made up of 4 entities. The Minnesota Department of Commerce, the Great Plains Institute, which if you are not familiar with, is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization focused on energy and climate change through research, analysis, consensus policy development, and the acceleration of technology. Southwest Regional Development Commission, that is made up of 9 Southwest Minnesotan counties. They do planning and development, providing services to the public and private sectors. And then there's our SDP, which is the branch that I work for, Regional Sustainability Partnerships. Geez, if I bump anything, I end up somewhere. Let me get back. There we go. So regional sustainability, sustainable development partnerships is a part of the University of Minnesota Extension. RSDP connects greater Minnesota communities to the U of M's resources for local projects. It is a mouthful. And how we work is, I'll show you a big branch map of our staff in a moment here, but we've got the Minnesota map. So we have a regional coordinator in every region in the state. Metro CERTS has a few people doing that role because it's so population heavy in the metro, but regional coordinators are like the touch point in all of these places. And then we are supported by a larger group of folks throughout the state and in the metro. We also have steering committees in each of these regions, and it's sort of like a governing body, not exactly like a nonprofit board, but similar in that they are members of the community who help to guide our work. So it's not just the next show where I'm like, I think Northeast Minnesota needs to do all of this exactly the way I said. We have people who can tell us about the issues that their communities are facing and make sure that we're bringing those things to the forefront. And anybody can join. There's a broad range of skills from engineers and scientists to labor folks, educators, just parents in the community, people who own resorts. There's all kinds. We've got this big map. So I don't expect anybody to remember this map at the end of the day, but this is how we work. So we've got 4 executive directors. That's these 4 people across the top here, one for every entity. And we have 3 co-directors who make up the statewide leadership team. They keep us all on our toes. And then, of course, there are CERTS staff and consultants. All of us are housed within one of these partner organizations. And we also have like a handful of AmeriCorps folks working with us every year. Some of them are Climate Corps, some of them are more traditional AmeriCorps, but there's a whole bunch of them helping us get this work done too. So we have 19 staff based across 3 of the partner organizations and additionally those AmeriCorps folks. Even my slide says, whoa, that looks confusing and complicated. It is. It is a bit confusing and complicated. But we like to give people some context so you know when we're saying this is CERTS. There's a whole bunch of things going on here, a lot of moving parts. So the Department of Commerce obviously does not have a steering committee. They don't need one since they are informed by the legislature. But in Great Plains Institute houses 2 steering committees, sort of. Metro CERT is so large that the steering committee doesn't exactly overlap with the folks who help to review seed grants. And then SRDC has 2 entities as well. They operate differently, but Rural Minnesota Energy Board inform some of their work. And then they have a traditional steering committee like the rest of this big U of M extension block that you see here. So we all have our various steering committees. And in addition to steering committees, RSDP has these working groups and a regional board. So they're all working on different projects. Sometimes they intersect. But there are things like resilient communities, natural resources, things like tree migration, projects like that that are being worked on, some sustainable food systems, and then CERTS is one of those. Let me take a breath. That's a lot. All right. Give me just a second here. I'm going to mute myself and fix my. Now we're caught up. So there's a lot of small lettering. I have to move things around so I can see. I'm sure you can relate if you don't have cheaters. Sometimes I got to move things so I can see those little tiny letters. So so some of our programs we'll talk about next. I mentioned Green Steps cities earlier. Green Steps is a sustainability best practice program. It's geared towards cities and tribal nations on a range of sustainability practices, from like bike trails to purchasing policies, all kinds of energy efficiency practices. Minnesota Green Step Cities Tribal Nations is a voluntary challenge. It is assistance and recognition program to help cities achieve their sustainability. And when I say recognition program, what I mean by that is that, obviously we recognize them while we're working with them, but also they have like on their city hall, there might be a small plaque that says we're a Green Step City. Sometimes they have highway signs. The tribal nation that I'm standing on does. I pass a couple of them on my way here, which is cool. It helps the community to feel like they're involved. And the goal is to help cities achieve their sustainability and quality life goals. Green Steps is a free continuous improvement-based program. There are 29 best practices. I will not wear you all out by listing them here, but each best practice can be implemented by completing one or more actions. There are levels like 1-star, 2-star, or 3-star level, and from a list of 4 to 8 actions. So they do it in steps, green step cities. So these actions are tailored to Minnesota cities, focused on cost savings, energy reduction, and those best practice actions help cities identify a pathway forward on sustainability. So sometimes they have not made any steps. Some cities, of course, have jumped in while they've already put up some solar on some, on some city properties, et cetera. But you take it from what it can be like, which can feel really vague, especially if you're like a rural city and you haven't been involved yet. And we help them to find actionable steps. So if you live in a Green Step city or tribal nation, you can see what they're doing on the Green Steps webpage, which I believe is listed on that slide. Yes, it is, mngreenstep.org. And they report those actions. So we just wrapped up a survey process. So I think that survey, some of that stuff will be uploaded to the website soon. But if you aren't living in a Green Step city or on a Green Step city or Green Step tribal nation, you can approach your local elected leaders with information. If you need information, now you know who to get it from, and we can help you get started. So be happy to do that if you are interested. Next, solar for schools. So this slide is mostly just a snapshot of kind of the steps for solar on schools. It is a lot of work to get solar on a school building, but it is so worth it and helpful. And not only from like a cost and energy savings perspective, but you're helping students to understand that that's a pathway into clean energy, like advancing it, maybe working in clean energy, which is vitally important for a future where we're trying to build a lot of these things. We need young people excited and energized and involved in it. So far, we have helped, we've served, not just we, but 336 districts have been served. That's around 845,000 students, 60 plus on-site or community solar gardens. That is 40 school districts with 149 sites. We are working on several more right now. CERTS does provide technical support as best we can when schools are applying. I'm working with a group of superintendents on the Iron Range right now, trying to get them like, yes, we can do solar on the Iron Range. So we'll see if we get there. But one of our other programs is under 5%, the idea being to eliminate energy burden. With an all-in concerted effort, Minnesotans can reduce the energy burden of all families and households to under 5% of their household income by 2025. I don't remember what the average percentage is right now. I feel like it is closer to 8%. And that burden usually falls higher on families with lower incomes, which is not great. So we're going to need all the help we can get to make that possible, but that is our goal. And then we have been doing a bunch of work with, manufactured home parks. You can read a bunch about it on our website, but I think they've served, I don't want to list, I don't want to say because I'll say the wrong number, but this picture is a manufactured home park project in Detroit Lakes, which leveraged the Detroit Lakes Public Utilities resources to provide LED bulbs and other money for water heating pipe insulation, weather stripping, furnace filters, etc. Sometimes we use like that window wrap. And through our work with our statewide director, Joel Haskard, many of you have probably spoken with, we're doing outreach with Minnesota Energy Resources in their natural gas territory to provide similar energy savings kits. Those events are in the works for this summer. We're also working on having at least one, if not two, mobile home parks in greater Minnesota in each region served. Right now, it has been heavily focused in the southern part of Minnesota. So we're trying to branch out. We have two happening outside of Duluth this summer I'll be working on. I will actually physically go and hand out some kits myself. I'm kind of excited about that. We've got a lot of other work going on that I won't go super into depth here, but those manufactured homes are often built in warm climates, and many people are still living in manufactured homes that were not built for Minnesota, not built to last as long as they have, and they're frequently just leaking out energy, just heat, cool. All of it is just coming out. They're not well insulated. They don't have good windows. They're not well sealed, et cetera. So it's a huge energy burden on the individuals living there. And of course, on the overall picture, that's a heavy draw on our energy resources. So we will continue to make that a focus. How are we doing for time? We're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So we'll talk a little bit about food shelves. So the main reason we work with food shelves is they get kind of left behind. They're often in older buildings or not well-maintained buildings. They often have really old fridges and coolers if they have them. So they are just draining a ton of energy from that agency. And usually they're kind of under-resourced. So they don't have like a big crew of grant writers that can just get their coolers replaced with new ones, or get solar put on their building or whatever. So we do some assistance on energy projects, including navigating funding options for them. We do assistance on energy outreach to shoppers, which is really important because they're often have all of those same issues living in under-resourced buildings, older homes, et cetera. And our AmeriCorps members have really I have not talked to very many food shelves because the AmeriCorps folks are in it. So they're doing a wonderful job. But we do quite a bit of work with food shelves and often in conjunction with our mobile home park work because they're frequently serving the people who live in those parks. And here we have, I'm going to see if we can get this link thing to work. So we're going to do a couple of things here, but we're working with rural grocery stores. This is something that Extension and RSDP do without certs, but we're also involved in our own kind of branch of it. Assistance getting energy audits, very important in a small rural grocery store. Same issues with those big coolers, especially like if they're from the 30s or the 40s, they're just a huge energy drain. It's very expensive for a small grocery store to maintain. And of course, they don't always just have the funds to buy a ton of new updated energy efficient coolers. So we do technical assistance, navigating funding options for things like that. And we'll just highlight Aaron's Grocery in Northwest Minnesota here. The storytelling portion of CERT's website is fascinating. If you're bored some afternoon, you can find all kinds of stories about local Minnesotans making things happen, sometimes with our help, but all around clean energy projects. So this is about a rural grocery store that needed some support. It's called Aaron's Grocery. It is in Fertile, Minnesota, I think. I think that's how you pronounce it. But it's about 20 miles from Crookston. I will not read the whole story to you because that's silly. But it's got a population of about 800 people. That is 500 more people than the town that I live in. But that they are serving their community, and we're struggling, especially in the era of COVID. And he wants to be able to sell an array of fruits and vegetables, and that's hard to do in a place that is essentially a food desert. So there's Aaron. Big smile for you. And I think these are new fridges behind him. He got some help from RSDP during COVID, which helped him to build a relationship with CERTs, and eventually applied for and received a CERT seed grant. And as he says in his own words, I would never have had time or resources to look all this up. Shannon, who was one of our coordinators, I believe still works with the agency, but is no longer a coordinator, kept track of the dates and timelines and helped with logistics. So that's the sort of thing that we can help with. He says he was really fortunate to have that. If it wasn't for him, he would have missed out. So he is able to provide fresh, cold produce in his store. They received a $6,000 grant from us and were able to get some other funding with some technical support. We don't have the amount listed here, but Department of Ag funding and energy savings is nothing to sneeze at. 13,000 kilowatt hours. Money saved is around $1,400 a year. So they're serving about 4,000 people, over 4,000 people with that. Let's see if I can get back to my slide. Ah, it worked. Beautiful. So, we've reached the part we're going to talk about me. That's always fun. So this is the original farmhouse on my farm. I inherited it's a farmlet, they're calling them now, but it's a 50-acre farm in northeastern Minnesota, a place called the Zim Sachs Bog. If you are interested in bird watching, you may have heard of it. Of course, people who aren't local call it the Sachs Zim Bog, but locals, I'll call it Zim Sachs. Anyhow, this is the farmhouse. We believe that this house was built around 1860. We're not 100% sure, but the original portion of it has peg and log construction, no nails, and it is mostly white pine with some of the framing being tamarack. So all of that stuff dates it maybe the 1860s. It doesn't have a build date on its original paperwork. So the reason I'm showing you the farm is not just because it's a cool building or because it's mine, but because we installed a solar thermal panel on it in 2014. It was part of a weatherization program through a community action partner called AEOA, Arrowhead Economic Opportunity Agency, in 2014. I was involved and did not own the farm at that point. So not a conflict of interest, but the patent for that solar thermal furnace is now held by an organization called Eighth Fire Solar. I put their link here. I don't know if I'm happy to share these slides afterward if that's something that you all do. But Eighth Fire Solar is an indigenous owned organization, and they build and I don't know if they still install. I think they're moving out of installing, but they do manufacture these solar thermal panels in Minnesota. And what this one has been able to do, it is starting to lose a little efficiency because it's now 10 years old, right? And maybe the building probably needs some updated insulation and sealing again too. But it can maintain the home at around 52 degrees when external temperatures are above freezing. So when it drops colder than freezing, without us doing anything to it, the propane will kick on. If we want the house warmer than 52 degrees, we set the thermostat for, 68 or whatever. And it still comes on a great deal less than it did previous to that solar thermal panel being installed there. So you can't, it's these top two black windows. I don't know if you can see my little mouse, my cursor or not, but it didn't change the look of the house much. And it's still there. And you can read a little more about the farm and me and whatever here on our CERT's website. It's called A Sense of Place. I wrote this little article. But the reason I linked it here is because you can see the farm in its glory. So it doesn't quite look this sweeping and gorgeous. I'm only one person, and my grandparents had 6 children, so they were able to do a lot more with it than I am. But I am hoping to. I'm actually hoping to grow some, do a seed, like a tree nursery on the farm. So happy to chat about that someday. And I think that might. Oh, we got a little more here. It's like I thought that might be the end. Whoop. So these are things we can help with for solar, renewable energy for greater Minnesota. Rural businesses and farms get assistance from certs with solar site assessments, financial models, application support. So we provide technical assistance with things like REAP grants and other funding sources. Technical assistance being that we will actually help you come up with things like budgets and siting models and all of those things, filling out all of the beautiful paperwork that you have to if you want funding. We have information on federal tax credits, depreciation, and financing opportunities like PACE, which has to do with businesses. We have a whole webinar on PACE, so I won't go too deeply into it right now, but we do offer all of those things. This is just a little bit about proactive solar siting. There are multiple benefits. And this is a location in Murray County where they use GIS to do their solar siting. Very cool. We'll talk a little bit about electric vehicles. Greater Minnesota's largest challenge when it comes to electric vehicles is, of course, that there are no charging stations. So there are starting to be more. We're getting more and more of them. But it has been a large part of our work to work with all of these partners that you see on the side here. Minnetonka Power, Roseau Electric Cooperative, et cetera, to try and mitigate that and get more charging ports built, stations, traditional stations, and getting people to add them to their homes as well. So a little bit about our seed grants. I've mentioned several of them while we've been talking today. We have awarded $1.6 million since 2006. In our recent round, we had 137 apps, which is wonderful, but we could only award 52 of them, right? So project funding pays for things like labor costs, minor materials and supplies. We usually can't fund like the actual panels if you're building solar, et cetera, but we could help you get the people who are going to do things to help your energy project happen. And it must always have a community component. We don't typically do seed grants just for housing, unless it's like a habitat house, but all kinds of other community projects. And there you can put just seed grant in on our website, and you can read all about tons of them. There's some very exciting ones happening this year. I'm really lucky to be involved with a few of them. I think this might be just about our last slide. And it's really an ask. It's an invitation. Excuse me. This program is in the middle of being renamed. So right now it's called Inflation Reduction Act Ambassadors. We will probably call it something like Community Energy Ambassadors, mostly because just everyday folks who don't follow clean energy or any of this won't have any idea what Inflation Reduction Act is. So we want it to be more accessible for people. So just a community energy ambassador, really becoming a touch point for your community to equip Minnesotans to help their communities navigate federal and state clean energy programs and funding opportunities. The way it ties back to the Inflation Reduction Act is that it's, billions of dollars. I think it's like 369 billion with a B, dollars that are ready to go out to people who are, making their homes more energy efficient, making their businesses more energy efficient, buying electric vehicles, tax rebates, tax credits, point of sale credits, all sorts of things. So you can look that on our website. I'll be happy to provide links because that's a lot more helpful than just having to search for it on your own. But you can sign up to become one. The early stages are really just that you will start getting a newsletter specific to this ambassador program, and you'll be invited to some education. So some webinars, you probably get to hear me talk a whole bunch more, and some folks like Peter Lindstrom, who are much more knowledgeable than I am, will walk you through a lot of these exciting things that are still rolling out as the government kind of figures out how they're handing those funds down the pike. And that is that if you have questions or answers, you want to have a conversation about anything related to energy, you can give me an email there. My email address is listed, and I'd be happy to set up a Zoom or a phone call, and we can talk. Thank you so much. And if there are questions right now, we've got some time for them. I see there might be some in chat.
Nick, let me ask you one, and maybe you said it, but with all your AmeriCorps people and stuff, how big is your organization now? How many people do you know?
We have 19 full-time employees statewide. That's the statewide total. And but that's not the whole team, right? Because a lot of the team aren't people who work for us. They're just our partners.
Yeah.
So that number I don't know. But we have 19 full-time employees. I think we've got about half a dozen part-time employees, I think. And then maybe 8 AmeriCorps. It's probably more than 8, but something close to that.
Are the AmeriCorps, are they split out into the various regions, or do they have a specific area where they're working?
Sorry, what was that?
The AmeriCorps folks, are they working in each region or just in a couple regions?
There are AmeriCorps folks in every region. There are 4 working up here in the Northeast. I'd say there's 4 or 5 in like Central and Northwest. And then I don't know the numbers for the rest of them, but yeah, they're all over the place.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've got more questions, but how about the rest of you? You want to unmute yourselves and raise your hand and we'll call on you?
I
Or
have a question. Where do I get to raise my hand here?
You just
that's
go
okay.
for it.
Go ahead, Chris.
I'm wondering, how did you come to partner with the Southwest Regional Development Commission?
That is an outstanding question for which I do not have an answer. I'm not sure if Maggie is still on this call. She may know. But I have CERTS was formed about 20 years ago, so I wasn't involved in that part of things. So I don't
I asked
actually know.
because it's primarily a trade. A trade is for the purpose of trading and building businesses in the Southwest region. So I was just curious.
Yeah, I guess I'm not 100% sure. Maggie, do you have any thoughts? I don't want to put you on the spot, but
Sure, no, I should full disclosure too, if you're like, what is she doing adding all those links in there, that Maggie? Nick and I are colleagues. My role is events statewide and seed grants. So, and I've been an employee of CERTS and the U of M here for about 15 years-ish. So Chris, to your question, I think it's because wind was really big at the time that CERTS formed, and the Southwest Regional Development Commission really is aware of the economic impact of renewables. And so when CERTS was formed, they were very involved in that, and they view it, I think that's kind of it. And it's a historic relationship way back from then. I'll put some link in the chat too, that if I can find anything that explains it better, but I think that's the basic reason and gist for it. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi, Nick.
We don't want to leave it. We don't want to, make her.
Doug, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
I have
you.
a
Go
question.
ahead.
Okay, so Nick, given that Minnesota Department of Commerce is a cooperating partner with CERTS, is there any way that you can encourage them to get those Minnesota state rebates out that are part of the IRA? There's a lot in the IRA that I cannot access because step 1 is to rewire my 1908 100 amp house, and that is covered only by state rebates. So I can't go to step 2, step 3, step 4 until I do that.
Yeah, I would say that I don't have a great answer right off the bat. Have you looked at Rewiring America at all, like their website?
Yeah, but it's all about the rebates. I know what I need to do. I've gotten project bids. I can just do it and pay for it all by myself, but I'm thinking, why should I do that when the IRA says we will help you via state rebates?
Yeah, what I can say really is that at this point, it's a waiting game for all of us. The state has an application in that isn't even due quite yet for how they're going to lay out and put out these programs. So we're all just waiting for the government to tell us what's next. I would say that this is the time to just get your ducks in a row and have the costs and the
Well, they're in a
evaluations
row.
and all of those
They're ready.
things
They're
done.
waiting. I'm putting everything's on hold until I can act, and it's not retroactive. It'd be lovely if it were retroactive, but it's not.
That is correct. So yeah, I would wait. I would sign up for the ambassador program. You'll know things as soon as we know them, essentially. And hopefully you'll be able to help spread that news to other folks.
On a different tack, since you are so close to Sax-Zim Bog, have you looked at your farm being a rental for people who want to access Sax-Zim Bog?
We have actually thought about it. Yeah, I actually live in the bog, directly in it on the edge.
Are you
So,
lucky?
yeah, lucky until it's flood season. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, we've been thinking about maybe like some tiny homes on the property where people could stay and photograph the birds. Like I hear people list off some of the birds that they want to see while they're there. And I'm like, geez, I stared at those while I was drinking coffee this morning. So it is something we're considering.
Yeah, unfortunately, one of my tours was canceled because of the weather. It rained and then like you said, it's boggy.
Yeah.
So the winter weather was not conducive for tours.
Yeah.
Good luck with the farm.
Oh, thank
Oh.
you.
Nick, my name is Louis Asher, and I unfortunately got into your talk 15 minutes late. Like we were out of town here, or not out of town, out of the house. You might have already explained this, and I apologize if you have. Where do you get your funding? Where does CERTS get their funding? Could you mention that or explain that?
I didn't directly mention it. It's not, I think it's not in the presentation because it's different every year, but we have multiple grants that we partner with. Like we get foundational grants from places like McKnight. And then there's about $500,000 a year that is built into this statute at Minnesota State through the Department of Commerce that goes through to CERTS.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that makes sense. I thought it might be grants. Well, thank you for all your work. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Barbara, go ahead.
Well, I wondered about these AmeriCorps people. Is it a 1 year or some definite interval assignment? And then I wondered what do they do later?
Several of our full-time employees were once AmeriCorps participants. So there's that. People stick around with CERTS. A couple of people who were AmeriCorps folks years and years ago are now steering committee members for various committees across the state. But you start AmeriCorps with 1 full year. I think we're about to change over. So I think a lot of them leave in June, July, and then new people come on. But we have at least a handful of them that are on their 2nd year. Sometimes they're able to do that with AmeriCorps, and CERTS is kind of fun. We get to do a lot of really interesting things. So sometimes they get to do a couple of years with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris?
I have another question. Yes. I think I really perked up when I saw your ambassadors program, but I don't think it's what I've got in my mind. It looks like the ambassador program is learning about the IRA and how to explain it to people. I'm wondering, and I think that after doing tabling at the Home and Garden Show and other places, people need to know where to start. Like they need ambassadors to look at their project like Catherine was describing her home, look at what needs to be done and parse it out into its steps. Now she's done a great job of that of her own. A lot of people don't know where to begin, what comes first, second, third, fourth.
I think that'll be part of it. I don't mean to interrupt you. So if you have other things to say, just jump in and I'll shut up. But
no, I mean, because I know that stacking is going to be a really cool thing about the IRA. You can build on projects, but
Right.
Anyway, go ahead and explain.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, we're kind of building it, right? Like it's all working at the same time. So we're trying to build it while we're driving. And so the first step is to sign up, and then you will be provided some. We're actually redoing all of the recorded webinars, but we also have some live question answer sessions, because that's the baseline, right? Is to try and learn, what are all these things and how do we access them and what is the area median income and all of those things, but also working with your regional coordinators to give them the information that you just listed, that vital information, like who's going to do the energy audit on my house, because that's the first step, right? If you're doing it to your house, or like a building project, we need to audit how much energy are we already using, and what's our goal, and then how do we get to that goal. We don't do the work at CERTS, but we can connect you, hopefully, most of the time, to the people who do. So I
So at
think
the
that's the
state,
goal with the ambassadors.
so that's cool. So at the state fair where we meet people like thousands in 12 days, we often steer people to you folks, but they want to know, would we be advising that they all sign up for the ambassador program?
I don't think that would be, I mean, they'd be happy, they'd be welcome to, of course, but
Would they get some personal kind of attention that way?
I mean, maybe there's already 900 people signed up, so I don't know how personal it'll be, but we're hoping that we'll be able to build sort of a network of the ambassadors so that you all can communicate with one another, like people who join can crowd share information together. So we set up some maybe some coffee Zoom conversations where people are sharing ideas and thoughts and resources.
Okay.
But so, I mean, you definitely could. We have things on our certs, like I can always provide for you, or any of us can give you QR codes so that people who are visiting you at the state fair can hover their phone and it'll bring them to the place where they sign up to be an ambassador. But you could also get some resources from us if you want to provide those resources directly, like where do you start, where do you find the things? If they want to just attend a webinar because it will give them some of those answers, et cetera. I don't know if CERTS, like as an entity, goes to the state fair, but I am pretty sure that a lot of us end up tabling in various ways. So, I don't know if that's a helpful answer or not.
Yeah, feel free to volunteer with us. I have a question, and I don't know, maybe kind of an odd question, but I mean, we always talk so much about the metro because that's where we are. But I mean, you guys are all over the state, which I think is just so fantastic. Do you have a sense of how much of your work relates to like farmers and people like that versus, business people? Is there quite a bit of work done? I know you do some projects with farmers, but I mean, is it like 20% of the work out there in the non-metro area?
I think that's a really great question. I don't know that we've ever broken down our data like that. And this is the first year that we've had full-time regional coordinators all across the state. This, 2024 is the first year that we've had full-timers like me all over the state. So I think it's growing. I definitely know that the demand, the want is growing. We're getting requests much more often. So I feel like maybe the tides are changing where people think it is attainable, that solar can happen in cold climates. I know that they're for a long time, people, thought it's cold. It's gray. We can't have, but the sun still shines, but I think that's shifting. We don't have a percentage breakdown. So now I have a question to bring to our data. We have a one person on staff whose job it is to chop up the numbers for us. So now I can pester her with that at our next meeting. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it would be kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I just wanted to share with Catherine, she wants to get to Department of Commerce and get them going on this faster, which I think a lot of people do. But you have an awesome individual with Peter Lindstrom there. Yeah, he works so directly with Commerce. He would probably be the person that could give her an idea of how close they are to some of that. I mean, I've talked to Commerce lately based on a question from Catherine, and in fact last week, and they told me, they said, you know, just take it easy. We're doing it as fast as we can. We've just hired 60 people, and we're trying to get everybody educated and programmed and everything. So it's just taken them a while to, you know, get up to speed with all of the stuff that's come in. Even like some of the programs, you know, community solar gardens and solar on schools has now been, you know, shifted over to Commerce. So they are extremely busy. So but Peter's a great contact for that kind of thing.
Agreed. Yeah, Peter is really good at getting things done. And I'll just to give them a little, you know, a little relief for the folks at State Commerce. A lot of this process is also tied up with the feds. So like they have to do these, like get an application, send your application back. And, you know, so it's, I believe they are hustling to get things out as fast as they can.
Yeah.
We want to be intentional about it too, of course. Are there any other questions?
Any other things?
I have a question. My name's Lauren Lindelof, and I also work with City of Wayzata, and we were trying to get our city to join Green Steps. Although we couldn't, I work on their Energy and Environment Committee, and I couldn't give them any concrete reason of how it would benefit the city by being a Green Step city instead of just doing their own thing.
Yeah.
So are there benefits?
There are. Can I can I list them quickly and easily? No, probably not. Lauren, do you mind sending me an email to this email that's on the page here?
Sure. Okay.
I can connect with you, you know, outside of this. We can just have a chat, and I can just have some more information, better information ready for you than I do
Okay.
off the top of my head.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, some of the cities that have been in that are, you know, have completed different things, and some of them are getting some very high ratings nowadays. I know a couple areas that I'm in out here in South Metro, they've really done a lot of work there to, you know, improve their efficiencies and conservation and all that different type of things. So it's a great program.
Nick and Doug, is it okay if I pipe in about Green Step Cities? And
Yeah, of course.
absolutely.
apologize if I'm monopolizing.
No.
I think in answer to your question, and I'm putting a link in the chat, the idea is a few reasons, but like to not invent the wheel, and that there's all these best practices, but the intent is that it helps your city reach its goals. And for every best practice, there's a human that you can contact that's like an expert on that topic. So it's intended to, that's one of the reasons, as well as recognition, and that web page could give you more. But as Nick said, the best thing to do is email Nick, and then Nick will put you in touch with a colleague of ours at the Metro closer to you.
Yeah, we'll get you connected with somebody at Green Steps who's smarter than me and can answer the questions a little better than I can.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Maggie's, who's the guy that's been there for years working on that program? I can picture him. He's tall, slim, gray-haired. I know he ends up at some of your search meetings.
You know, Philip Music, he retired.
Yes,
So now
yes.
Kristen Morose, who has another last name that I'm blanking on. Kristen's in charge of the program now, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, he and Paul used to do a lot of stuff on that kind of thing. So, but okay. Well, I'm behind the times. He's gone. Any other questions for Nick? Nick, are you, back to your farm for a minute, are you running animals at the farm now, or?
At the moment, I have chickens and ducks and a whole bunch of rescue dogs. But I am hoping to have sheep soon. And
Awesome.
we also do some food production, like just enough to feed our family and maybe give away some cans of various things, or I just hand people big armloads of zucchini. You know how it goes, but but we're doing a pretty big garden at this point, and I'm hoping to continue to grow. My grandparents farmed all sorts of things, including cattle. I don't think I'm a cattle farmer. I don't think I've got it in me, but yeah.
Well, that's one thing. If you plant zucchinis, you're going to have plenty.
No shortage.
The
Well,
are you so have you done any checking to see if those solar air heat panels can be, I mean, are they still available through the other source now?
Yes. Eighth Fire. There are several stories on Eighth Fire. Like I think I linked one of them in this thing. Let me see if I can find it here. But there it is. Oh, this is probably just their direct website, but we have done a story on them recently, and they've been featured like on the news, and Seam did a big story on them last year. But yes, there's still demand for them. They are working on getting more installers trained across the state because there aren't a ton of people. Part of the problem is there aren't a ton of people who have learned to install them. Sometimes there's pushback from people who install traditional HVAC, don't always want to learn how to install them, et cetera. So there's been some issues. But yeah, they are still making them. I could replace mine if I ever need to. I hope not to need to anytime soon. But and there's a guy who locally to me who can come and work on ours. We had him do like an audit of it last year to make sure that it was still safe and doing its thing. So but here's Eighth Fire's website, and I'll just drop the link in the chat so you can check it out. They're doing some pretty cool things. And like I said, in one of the modules, building that green energy workforce, clean energy workforce is, it's just a huge part of what all of us need to be talking about, because we can get people the funding for all of the solar and all of the air return heat pumps and all of those things. But if there's nobody to install or maintain them, it's not going to get us very far. So we've got to push that a lot. And I've had some recent conversations with Eighth Fire about how we're going to try and do that.
And
Yes,
that's on the White Earth group, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And when you were going through your presentation, you were talking about the different tribal groups, agencies you work with. I'm assuming Red Lake and White Earth. What are the other ones that you work with?
I don't think we're doing much active work with Red Lake at the moment. Not that we wouldn't, but I don't think we have any active projects with them.
Okay.
But like I'm standing on the Fond du Lac Reservation right now, and the Cloquet Forestry Center, where my office is housed, is entirely within reservation territory. And this is a Green Step reservation, and there's there's also Tribal City, we call it, but and there's also so much solar being installed on the Fond du Lac Reservation that they actually do a tour now. So we've actually taken CERTS folks, the steering committee, on that tour last year. But I mean, there's some pretty exciting things happening here. And we're developing some workforce dev stuff with White Earth at the moment as well. We're doing some stuff with Boyce Fort. We are working on a feasibility study for a microgrid, possibly at Grand Portage. So there's little things happening with any of the tribes who are interested, and we do outreach to them. Of course, all of our stuff is voluntary, so we're not too pushy, but we'd be happy to help wherever we can. And we're also, one of our seed grantees is working specifically with the tribal nations to help them get federal funding. Like seed grants are like this much. We want some of them to be able to go after these big grants. And so they've got some grant writers who are trained and able to help them with the technical process of going after some of those big funds for, like, we're going to update the electrical and all of these big chunk of houses, or whatever project they're up to. So
yeah, I know Red Lake has gotten some major funding lately on the EV side of things, and bought a bunch of vehicles and are using them all over their system. One thing I wanted to ask you, a group that I'm involved with is the Minnesota State Energy Center for Excellence. Do you guys do any work with them?
I don't have an answer to that question. I don't know. We do?
Maggie,
Maggie
do you
knows.
know?
We did years ago, Doug. So there was a film that came out, The Power of Minnesota, and we co-hosted an event with them where we showed the film and had a community discussion afterward. Rose Patzer, I want to say,
Yeah.
is somebody we've worked with quite a bit over the years. My colleague Joel Haskard could tell you the details a lot better, but the short answer is yes, we've worked with them over the years. So
Okay. I was just curious because I've got a meeting with them up in St. Cloud next week, and one of the things they're talking about that is pretty exciting, and you guys I'm sure are starting to see it too, is one of their speakers is from Xcel Energy, and she's going to talk about the Heartland Hydrogen Hub, which is a big thing coming, to our part of the country, and could really anyway change some major economics around here. So I'm sorry, any other questions? I get into this too deep myself.
I see the snow is starting, and so I'm thinking about driving, but I wanted to say both thank you and I apologize. I was thinking Nick was going to talk more about some non-work related stuff, and here I feel like I kind of, so jumped in too much. So
No, not at all.
great to see everybody, and thanks Nick and Doug and everyone for being so
Yeah.
gracious. So
We'll talk tomorrow,
Well,
Maggie.
I'm so glad she did talk about her personal stuff, because when I invite people to this, I always ask them, to talk about any kind of personal thing that they're doing. And we had a guy from the Metropolitan Council that shared with us, like, I think at the time he was living in White Bear and had done all kinds of solar and insulation and energy things at his home. And it's just fun to hear what, people are doing locally. Nick's project there, I mean, that location just sounds like it's got tremendous potential.
I hope so.
Yeah, you hope so.
We got to make it work for itself, right? Well, I want to thank you all so much for having me. I really encourage you to reach out. If you're not in my region, that's okay. I can connect you to the appropriate coordinating regional coordinator. So if you have a question at all that you think I could be helpful with, please do connect. And it was just lovely to chat with you all. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. We really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Yep, thank you. Bye.
MRES board will be meeting in about 15 minutes. Thank you.
Okay.